What's up, Zach here, and today I've got the, I guess, new again, Nike LeBron 21 Prime 96. Let's get into them. All right, now this style silhouette of LeBron has been around since the 20, and it seems like the 21 has gotten the majority of all the different versions, right? There's the 21 Lite or the Reimagined. Now there's the Prime 96. There's gonna be a Prime 93 LeBron as well. Be interesting to see if they do as many on the 22 or if they go back to the 20, maybe do some other things with it. But the 21 definitely seems to be getting a lot of love in terms of different versions of the shoe. Might just be when the shoe came out for sure. But the Prime 96s are an interesting shoe, and the differences in the Prime 96 versus just the standard 21 or the 21 Reimagined, to me, they're there and they can be significant. I think you just kind of have to see if you care enough. So let's get into them. Now, by far the thing I like most about the Prime 96, and you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you'll know exactly what I'm about to say, but it's that it has a dorsal retention strap. And this is actually pretty beefy. It's got a nice plastic loop here on the medial side, and it does pull over quite a bit of material. It is laced into this pretty large insert here on the medial side, so you do get a pretty nice lockdown on that. Now, the rest of the uppers, in terms of the silhouette, it's the same as the 21, right? You got Nike Sphere, you got a really porous tongue in there, but then obviously you've got kind of the exposed cabling underneath of it, kind of like the Reimagines, but then you also have kind of the leather pieces coming over the top of it. So the reinforcement everywhere is very significant, kind of like the shoe that it's harkening back to, a beefy shoe. Now you look at this thing on the breathability test. This was interesting. They only heated up 80.2 degrees, and that's, like I said, that's on my new breathability testing where I'm getting peak as well as central temperature. So obviously it's gonna be a lot less than previous recordings, but even for that, these are significantly less than some other shoes with a lot more material. If you look at the heating on it, you can see that the heat is getting out. That tongue is lighting up like crazy. Plus, on the medial and lateral sides of the forefoot, there's actually some heat being transmitted through there. And I think that's tremendous, just because, like I said, you feel them, you get them in hand. They are substantial, and they are quite a bit heavier than the 21s. So for all that extra weight, you're getting pretty similar breathability. Look at the mapping, fog's getting out of the tongue like crazy. So yeah, I mean, they're gonna hold on to moisture, right? Where all the leather is, right? I mean, yeah, they're gonna hold on to some moisture for sure, but with the combination of the Nike Sphere, with all the porous openings in the tongue of these things, and just how, a lot of Nike shoes handle heat, for how substantial the uppers really are, I actually thought that was tremendous. If you look at heel slippage on these, without an orthotic, heel slippage is pretty much mild to none. I mean, I was barely moving in these. I was kind of cranking down the dorsal retention strap. Remember, these don't have a runner's knot. I guess you could make one out of these last two eyelets. And the laces are really beefy on these things, which is really cool. So without an orthotic, yeah, I mean, they're really no problem at all. With an orthotic in there, though, I was starting to get mild heel slippage. I could definitely tell I had an orthotic. And the other thing I could tell, though, is I have pretty high arch, and I could definitely start to feel the retention strap once the orthotic started pushing me a little bit higher in the shoe. Now, the lower the profile orthotic you have in there, the less you're gonna notice that. So if you got more like something like a Power Step Pinnacle in there, or Pinnacle Max, you're gonna feel it way more versus something like a Pulse Light, or a Pulse Thin, I should say, I don't know, yeah, a Pulse Thin, or a Bridge, more low profile orthotic. The heel slippage is gonna go back down to that kind of mild to, am I really even feeling this territory? So yeah, I think the retention strap's doing a little bit more for side to side feel. Yeah, it's giving you a little bit more lockdown. It's just the 21s lock down pretty well on their own. So to me, the dorsal retention strap, I think Nike put it in there more for, like I said, for window dressing, for the collab, but in terms of side-to-side containment, yeah, it can't not do something. All right, but getting into the midsole teardown, once again, it's the exact same as the 21. You got a big chunky Zoom Air unit in the rear foot, Cushlon throughout the shoe, top-loaded plastic shank, and then you've got that Zoom Turbo in the forefoot. Interestingly enough, the plastic shank on these is, I mean, it's decent, it's top-loaded, it's decent. If you look at the diving board effect on these things, it took 76.3 newtons to get that thing up to 45 degrees. And that is more than some carbon fiber plated shoes in the forefoot. Remember, Zoom Air's got some tension to it. when the shank is top loaded, it's gonna resist bending forces. I think just overall, the shoe is just pretty substantial, right? And so I thought that was kind of interesting that these even had a little bit more of a stiff setup versus shoes that have, you know, quote unquote, more stiff materials like carbon fiber, more quote unquote premium shank like carbon fiber, composite, things like that. Just goes to show you that plastic really can get the job done, at least in my opinion. So yeah, in terms of midsole setup, I like the LeBron 21's midsole setup, so I'm gonna like these, but I just say don't look for anything too drastically different. Speaking of all these cool modifications to the 21, if you wanna take your shoes to the next level and mod them out to perform their best, fit their best, and get them as customized as you possibly can, you'll want to check out my brand new ebook, all on shoe and orthotic customization, as well as lower leg taping. If you want to get more information on that, I'll leave that linked down below. Like I said, it is nice, you know, when all these pros get all these cool custom mods on their shoes, and you know, it's nice when you and I can kind of recreate that same thing with very affordable materials right at home, do that reproducibly to get the most performance out of your shoes possible. So like I said, if you want to check that out, I'll leave that link down below. I'll be getting into the outsole tread. It's basically the same topographical map pattern, got all these squiggles going everywhere. It is full length, which is great. The 21s have always had, to me, pretty phenomenal grip. I've never really had a problem, all three pairs I've had. Look on the grip test ramp, slips it exactly the same, 41 degrees. And in terms of initial grip versus dynamic grip, or static grip versus dynamic grip, I should say, once again, these are fantastic. The lateral flange on these things is really chunky with all that rubber, and these things just dig into court. Even my court, which is right now getting into summer, is kind of the slickest this court gets because this big bay door is open right here, and so stuff is just blowing in here all day. And I just kind of leave the court as I give it a quick wipe down, just so it's not too dirty, but it's dusty and dirty. And these things, even though they did pick up some dust, really had zero problems at all. These are some of the more sure-footed shoes out there. And plus with the dorsal retention strap on these things, you know, you can really feel that containment. You get a little more proprioception. You get it just that one more touch point in your foot. So yeah, I mean, all in all, in terms of grip, I mean, absolutely fantastic. In terms of speed, yeah, I mean, they're heavier shoes. Look at these things. On the speed ratio, they come in at a 2.6, shank score of 0.2, bumps it up to a 2.8. And that's just because, you know, you've seen on the bounce height test how many times I've done the 21 bounce height test. You know, they've got some pop to them. They got a top-loaded shank, so even though they are a little bit heavier, plus you get the dorsal retention strap, the shoe just feels pretty hooked up, right? It's fitting pretty one-to-one on the foot. You can move on these things, especially if you're a bigger player, right? And you don't really mind some of the increased weight in the shoe. I think then even they're gonna become even faster. I think the Prime 96, I think it's worth it to have a little bit of extra weight to it because, like I said, it feels so hooked up. Now that's me. If you don't care about the dorsal retention strap, you'll probably just wanna get a lighter version of the 21. That's gonna be a little bit more of a speedy shoe for you. But to me, in terms of the grip, in terms of, like I said, all the contact points and the containment, stopping power and starting power, yeah, just same as 21, just with a little bit more containment. All right, but getting into the fit of the 21s, these things only have a 9-degree inflare, which pretty mellow, which is really nice. At least for me, I just feel like it just fits more people. If you look at this thing in terms of resting position of eversion, these things sit at 0 degrees. Then when you load them, they only go to 2 degrees of eversion. So they are really, really sturdy shoes. Same as the original 21. Like I said, just that's, you know, full length tread pattern, just kind of shape of them, wide lateral flange. You kind of could see on the springboard test over there, just they're stable shoes for sure. I think they come in at 28.8 centimeters in length, heel width of 6.2 centimeters, minimum midfoot width of only 6.5 centimeters, and then a maximum metatarsal width of 9.6 centimeters, and then a toe box width of only 10.2 centimeters, and a toe box taper of 31 degrees. So they do taper pretty hard in the forefoot, and from the metatarsals to the toes, especially from the maximum metatarsal width to the toes, yeah, I mean, they taper pretty hard. Measurements, I would say narrow, medium foot, and go true to size. A 2E, if you're looking for more room, I probably would be going up that 1/2 size on these things. If you want to spend some time breaking them in, get them more one-to-one, then try to get them true to size. It's just with all the extra material, with the dorsal retention strap, these things are just going to feel a little bit more snug on you. I still think, you know, whatever you got in the 21s, whatever you felt comfortable with, will still hold true in these, but I would say get ready for a little bit more break-in before you'd be going up a size on these things. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the break-in on them is a little bit more than others, especially if you're a higher arched foot. In terms of people I'd be recommending these for, kind of honestly same as the 21s, same as kind of 20s and the 22s. They're incredibly stable shoes for ankle sprainers. These ones especially. I think these ones are the best of the bunch. So for an ankle sprainer, fantastic. Somebody looking for kind of a more bottom stable, substantial shoe that also has some pop to it. Looking for sure-footed grip. You want to be able to fit orthotics in your shoes. Somebody with heel pain, ball of foot pain, arch pain, tendonitis, really anything like that. The only thing I would say is if you're prone to shin splints and maybe you don't have the strongest legs out there, they might feel like a little bit kind of coming through that gait cycle when you're decelerating. So your tibialis anterior might be doing a little bit more work, but I think that's only going to be for certain people. To me, and you know, the more I talk about it, the more I kind of realize that the 21 from the 20, 21, and 22, the 21 to me definitely is my favorite, even though no, it doesn't have carbon fiber. I couldn't really care less about that. And I think as long as the material works in the shoe, you know, that's what I think is the most important thing. You know, those 22s have that saddle on the bottom side, and I've been going back and forth of how much I like it or not. The more I play, and I keep going back to the 21s, or I put on the 20s, the more I like those more. And I think, like I said, with the retention strap, I think, to me, this is a really good rendition of it, but I also think that the 21s are great too. So do you need to get the Prime 96 to experience all the benefits of the LeBron 21? No, but like I said, having that extra piece of containment, having that little, you know, that shoe just a little bit more hooked up on your foot is really nice. So yeah, for me, it's definitely a buy. I like them quite a bit. Still one of my more favorite Nikes of the last few years. And so yeah, I'm excited to see the Prime 93 and see how those stack up, how those feel on foot. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you do want to see what I'm talking about, the brand new LeBron 22 and kind of what's going on with that, with that shank and saddle setup, I'll leave that video linked right here. And if you do want to see the new Luka 4 come out and all kind of the things, kind of how those are harkening back to the Luka 1, I'll leave that linked right here. Make sure you subscribe down below. Respect, Rubber, and Foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.